we shall begin. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order, and the first thing that we do, of course, is pledge allegiance to the flag, which is behind us here. So if you all rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, okay, Barney? Oh, yeah.
Before we get into the business of the meeting, we wanted to note the untimely passing of Dennis Siskowski, who was the science director at the Hudson River Foundation and has been the chair of the Hudson River Estuary Management Advisory Committee since 1987. Fran, could I call on you to say something about Dennis? You knew him better than anybody else here.
Dennis was a marine biologist, PhD scientist, and someone who had worked in government for many years. He worked for US EPA, he worked for the Army Corps of Engineers, he became the science director at the Hudson River Foundation, and it was when he became science director that we approached him and asked him if he would become the chairman of our Estuary Advisory Committee, which he has done since 1987. Dennis passed away very suddenly, unexpectedly on Saturday, and we're all really in shock and disbelief that he's gone. At any rate, as you know, Scott was saying, Dennis really set a tone. Scott's on our advisory committee, and Dennis really set a tone of kind of cheerfulness and collaboration that made it possible for very diverse people and perspectives to come together on our committee and learn to collaborate and work together positively for the river and for, you know, a conservation future. So he really set a tone that is going to be very hard to replace, and we miss him very much. So thanks for giving us a chance to honor Dennis today.
As always, we introduce ourselves. The man with the scarf, thank you, Jane, you can get in there for me. And I'm Barney McHenry, and my co-chair is James.
James McElhinney.
Well, say what you are, James.
Author, visual artist.
Andy Beers, director of the Empire State Trail and staff of Hudson River Greenway.
Andy Picking, Scenic Hudson on voting member.
Jason Wolfinger, delegate for the Aerospace Management.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
Steve Silman, member of the Communities Council.
Orange County historian and Orange County representative.
Mary McNamara, Hudson River Watershed Alliance, and representing Ulster County.
Sarah Wilson, Greenway Conservancy and Youth Planners. Sally Mazzarella, the Greenway Council, and I'll also give a shout out to the Winfield Land Trust.
Meg Downey, Dutchess County representative.
Kristen Brown, Conservancy member.
Lydia Biscuit, representing Senator Sue Serino. Dave McLaughlin, Conservancy treasurer.
Michelle Smith representing Putnam County on the Communities Council and also Nancy Collins Interest.
Good morning, I'm Jean McKay with the Erie Canalway National Heritage Corridor.
Scott Miller, acting Oh, yes, 1 second. Who's calling in? Who's dialed in?
Vincent Altieri for Rockland County Executive Ed Day.
Who was that? Oh,
Alessandra Larson, Fisher Center at Bard.
Karen Unger, Bard College. Maud Salinger, Hudson River Estuary Program.
Cody Arana, Hudson River Valley Greenway staff member.
Hello, Jennifer Carlquist at Boscobel House and Gardens.
Joan Burrows, John Burroughs Association and Slabsides.
Vernon Benjamin, Town of Saugerties.
Leanne Thornton, Town of Saugerties.
Patrick Wadden, Arm of the Sea Theater Company.
Patrick Landaway, Saugerties Lighthouse Conservancy.
Carly Fraccaroli, Scenic Hudson.
Kitty McCullough, Calvert Box Preservation Alliance.
Alan Zeta, Supervisor of Town of Marlborough.
Len Gadali, partner with Judas Engineering. Good morning.
Carol Cook, Gomez Millhouse.
Christina Lilpop, Bassey Museum of Firefighting. Terry Simmons, Bassey Museum of Firefighting. Natalie Kickle, Historic Huguenot Street. Jennifer Grime, Thomas Cole National Historic Site.
Good morning, Priscilla Brendler, Greater Hudson Heritage Network.
Suzanne Panditch, Westchester County Historical Society.
Matthew Shook, Palisades Interstate Park Commission.
Deborah Emmons Andraus, Historic Cherry Hill.
Betsy Moss, Town of Unionville.
Dan Jeanson, Greenway staff.
Since you asked, this is good. Jane Daniel knit this for me. Okay.
I also want to take a moment again to welcome our new members today. We're delighted to have them, and I think we'll benefit from your experience, insight, and I very much look forward to working with them in that program. Karen and Daniela Weiss. I thought maybe just you might want to say a couple of words of introduction.
Thank you. I want to introduce myself to everyone. My name is Daniela Weiss. I'm the president of by Andrew Cuomo. I first met Andrew Cuomo when I was working in the legislative office. There I was responsible for primarily drafting his bills and seeing them throughout the legislative process. Thereafter I went to law school in Syracuse. First job out of law school was working for the city of Albany. There I was their attorney for the planning board and the UK. So I've had a lot of experience with new development projects, secret process, environmental issues that we I also now I'm in a private law firm downtown Albany and up in their environmental department there. Where again I've had experience of that sort. So I can bring whatever experience I have to the board and something that will help.
So,
I'm not sure if probably it's on. Hi, I'm Erin Tobin. I'm delighted to be joining the Greenway Conservancy Board. I'm with the Conservation League in New York State. We're the statewide historic preservation nonprofit that provides technical assistance with grant programs, which have also been supported by the Hudson River Valley National Heritage Area. And we have a revolving loan fund. We advocate for public policy at the local, state, and federal level. I've been with the League since 2007. When I first joined, I came to these meetings very regularly and was part of the National Heritage Area Management Committee. So it's a real joy to be back here and looking forward to re-engaging with the Greenway Conservancy and the Heritage Area.
there's one more person here, which is Mary
We got
McNamara.
another Mac. Where is she?
Good morning. Again, it's my honor to join the Hudson River Valley Greenway Communities Council. I live in Ulster County and have been asked to represent Ulster County. My past has been focused on water and watersheds, working with trails that overlap with water bodies. So I'm with the Hudson River Watershed Alliance Board and also with the Soapus Creek Conservancy in the town of Saugerties. I look forward to offering that perspective, working with you all. And again, very happy to be part of this organization. Thank you.
We like all these Macs here, and because now we've got McElhenney. We're going to lead off with you, James, and of course we've got Miss McKay coming after that, and then I can take my scarf off, I guess. Right? Okay, James. Come on. Oh, well, anyway, however you want to do it. You've got a good booming voice.
He's not by a microphone. It won't work for me better.
Okay, all right. Come up here, please, James. Welcome as always. You know how that's like. That's what I was waiting for. Nothing wrong with applause. Right?
None at all. Hard now hitting my head on the microphone. Wait until the end. Thank you, Kevin, Barney, for inviting me to speak to this August gathering today. Today I want to talk to you about two big intertwined ideas. First, that the American landscape manifested through drawing, painting, and prints was born in the Hudson Valley. And second, that from the beginning, the artist's appreciation of scenery went hand in hand with the values of public access and environmental responsibility. George Perkins Marsh, an early voice in the American conservation movement, observed that, quote, "Vision is a faculty, seeing is an art." Few today, success. Few today know that one of the great American drawing academies was founded at West Point. When Sylvanus Thayer became the superintendent in 1818, he specified 2 hours of drawing a day for all second and third year cadets. Apart from knowing how to produce mechanical drawings and maps, military officers were expected to know how to think visually, not just to produce choreographic views of new territories, but also to be able to discern anomalies and changes in the terrain which could inform their decisions under fire. Thayer's drawing master, Thomas Gimbreed, noted that, quote, "Drawing is all curved lines and straight lines. Anyone can draw a curved line, anyone can draw a straight line. Therefore, anyone can draw." These were heady times in American schoolrooms. This is just an example of the kind of artwork that a military officer could do. This is by Joshua Rowley Watson, a British naval officer who traveled in America after the War of 1812. So these were heady times in American schoolrooms. Reformers like Rembrandt Peale, Hector Humphreys, Horace Mann, and others promoted universal education, including drawing and penmanship. A working person might know how to read a book, but not their master's longhand. Teaching cursive, not a well-known fact, teaching cursive handwriting to all was another way to level the playing field. Rembrandt Peale observed that while drawing and writing were reciprocal skills, quote, "Writing is nothing more than drawing the forms of letters. Drawing is nothing else than writing the forms of things. Horace Mann called drawing a moral force. Moral force. He was quite sure of that. As the young republic began to form its identity, public demand for scenic vistas fueled a publishing boom, at first in Philadelphia and then soon after in New York. Artists like William and Thomas Birch, which you see here, Charles Wilson Peale, Thomas Doughty, which we see here, and others specialized in river views. At first along the Schuylkill and Delaware rivers, and later durably along the Hudson. Of course, this is because they were media of public travel. This is the way people got around. Within a couple of decades, the Great North River had become a magnet for landscape artists. A young Englishman who had emigrated to Ohio before moving to New York produced this painting of Fort Putnam in 1826, giving birth to what is known today as the Hudson River School. 5 years earlier, Irish painter William Guy Wall and author John Egg traveled from what was then believed to be the source of the Hudson River in the Adirondacks down to New York Harbor. Over the next few years, Wall and printmaker John Hill produced a remarkable series of hand-colored etchings, which were published with narratives by Egg. The Hudson River portfolio is divided between canonical picturesque views, this, and natural wonders, including a preponderance of waterfalls. I wondered why, and then it occurred to me that people looking at these images in 1820 might have seen more than just thrilling scenery. Some would have recognized these waterfalls as untapped hydropower for manufacturing. While it is only a theory, it is possible that some of Wall's backers were hoping to promote commercial development in the upper Hudson Valley. Tourism, else why would they have 3 prints of Hadley Falls? Tourism would not develop in these regions for decades to come after canals and railroads had penetrated the wilderness. Years later, 2,000 miles to the west, upon meeting a group of prospectors entering the Boulder Valley in central Colorado, an Arapaho tribal leader named Niwot is quoted as saying, quote, "People see the beauty of this valley and they will want to stay, and their staying will be the undoing of the beauty." This is known as Chief Niwot's curse in Colorado. Indeed, the steamboats and railroads that delivered travelers to upriver resorts, Lakes George and Champlain, to Adirondack camps and the White Mountains in another state, constituted an American Grand Tour, which depended upon the same industrial economy that poisoned wild rivers and filled the air with soot from coal-burning vehicles, factories, and cities. In his painting of the Lackawanna Valley, George Innes shows us the fate of the forest, a field of stumps. The trees have been recycled as fence rails and railroad ties. Distant steam town with its fuming chimneys, you see on the right, and brick-bound dystopia recalls William Blake, who asked, "And was Jerusalem builded here among these dark satanic mills?" In his epic poem, The Lament of the Forest, painter Thomas Cole spoke of the rape of the land, stripped of its beauty by human greed. Here we see the painting, well-known painting. Cole is a gentleman on the right with the recorder in the portfolio. Here are a few lines which presage Richard Powers' Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, The Overstory. Thomas Cole. echo whose voice had answered to the call of thunder or of winds, or to the cry of cataracts, sound of sylvan habitants, or song of birds, uttered responses sharp and dissonant, the axe unresting smote our reverent ranks, and crashing trees lashed the ground, and mighty trunks, the pride of years, rolled on the groaning earth with all their umbrage. By the time Thomas Cole's student Frederick Church painted Niagara, the falls had already become a well-established tourist destination. Artists like Albert Bierstadt and Thomas Moran, who had accompanied railroad and mineral surveys of the American West, helped sell the idea of national parks to the U.S. Congress. Cole's Lament and the dire predictions of George Perkins Marsh's book, Man and Nature, helped shape the thinking of subsequent activists like John Muir, John Burroughs, and Rachel Carson. If we are to preserve nature's treasures, we must continue to develop new ways to bring human beings into deeper contact with nature without consuming it, except as personal experience, while leaving no trace. One need not be an artist in order to benefit from writing, drawing, and journal keeping. These are proven ways to transform experience into knowledge. Pulling onto a highway scenic overlook to snap a few pictures avoids any significant engagement with nature, which if given a chance, can be its own best advocate. Clean rivers, heritage itineraries, historic sites, improved hiking and rail trails, open spaces, let citizens reacquaint themselves with nature. The more profound their experience, the more likely they will be to discover how much they care about these resources and perhaps take steps to protect them. Over the years, many artists have taken up the cause. Explorers and artists were always pathfinders. They were the first tourists. They showed the world what America looked like. Following their example, perhaps at an easel, this is going to extremes, or with a sketchbook in hand, we can deepen our experience of nature, enrich our encounters with all of its wonders. And with the rise of social media and a new revolution in printed matter also underway, these countless new ways for nature conservancies and environmental preservations to partner with the arts abound. Environmental humanities programs at University of Pennsylvania, Colby College, and elsewhere are discovering that the arts, not just as individual expression, but more as personal engagement, can form a nexus between science, history, and the society they serve. This was true in the 19th century, and is true today. The American landscape was invented in the Hudson Valley, a vision undergoing a rebirth today, foregrounding the arts in new initiatives like the Empire State Trail and others, not only honors that legacy, it will assure their success. Thank you. What you're looking at on the screen is a page spread from one of my Hudson Valley journals. I didn't really talk about myself, although the program says that I might. I'm not as motivated by personal glory as I am by this idea of intense personal engagement with nature, having a look at historic itineraries, watersheds, things that are worthy of public attention. And okay, well, the series began as sketchbook paintings. My paintings, I had been a landscape painter for years and deeply involved with history, in the 90s painting battlefields and then eventually migrating into watersheds. And I found that the most mobile way to work followed an expeditionary practice. So in other words, I adopted the techniques, if you will, of explorer artists from the 18th and 19th century, which involved like watercolor in sketchbooks. And then confronted with the problem of how does one share these things, I went to Dick Solomon at Pace Prints, and he said, well, you got a 200-year-old idea, you need a 200-year-old marketing plan. So the result was Audubon. I raised money through subscriptions, and I produced a suite of prints in a Solander box with a chapbook, and here's an image of it on the screen behind me. This and other works will be the centerpiece of an exhibition at the Hudson River Museum, opening September 13th, running until February. The title of the show is Discover the Hudson Anew, James McIlhenny and the Art of Seeing. So I'm very, very honored by that opportunity to share my work through this wonderful institution in Yonkers, and I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you today. Thanks. And anyone who wants a private conversation, we can have that anon. So. Oh. Yes.
Is there a way you can use this slideshow and narrative on the web, or could the Greenway link to it? This was just so inspiring.
What I plan to do is, and I'm happy to make it available to the Greenway. I mean, I'm all about sharing. I will post both the PDF of the slideshow and also my talk on my website. I will also email them to Shannon, and which hoping that the Greenway finds both documents useful, and feel free to share in any way. My pleasure.
You might note that all of you on your next visit to Boston have seen the originals.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a framed set of the Hudson Highland Suite, which is the first. Second book that I did was called OTW, the Schuylkill River. That is now, it's another river, another region, actually my home region originally. That is the centerpiece of an exhibition that is now at the Independence Seaport Museum in Philadelphia. That show has been extended until January 5th. And I hope if you are in Philadelphia that you'll pay a call to the museum and take in the show. It's quite a wonderful establishment, history and science. I think probably instead of holding up the meeting and holding up our next speaker, I will step away from the podium and welcome any conversations that might follow. Thank you.
What's so exciting about your work is that so many people today are concerned about a growing gap between the folks on the sciences and humanities. And the message that you offered about the intersection between environmentalism and the humanities and engagement with the arts is exciting and offers an opportunity to link them together in new ways that I think are profound. Yeah, that's really, really exciting. Okay, so our next speaker is Kay, who's here from our friends up at the Erie Canalway, and we look forward to your presentation as well.
Well, thank you. Good morning, and I appreciate the invitation to talk with you this morning. I would love to do three things. Introduce you to the Canalway Challenge, tell you how it works, and share a little bit about why it matters. This is a new program that we're engaged in this year, and so it's my pleasure to share with you about the Canalway Challenge, which is essentially an invitation for you to discover all that you can do along New York's canals. We have a very different story of in our National Heritage Corridor than you do here, but we're very much still tied into the transformation of New York State that the canals led to. The building of the Empire State is very much part of our story, and so, you know, the Erie Canal remains such an enduring symbol of bold vision and achievement and what can be accomplished with hard work and sweat equity. And so we find that it's a perfect backdrop for big plans and bold achievements and new accomplishments. So with that as our backdrop, this spring, the Erie Canalway National Heritage Corridor, with funding support from I Love New York and the New York State Canal Corporation, and the support of many partners, including Hudson River Valley Greenway and Heritage Area, with promotional support from other organizations, we launched the Canalway Challenge. So this is a new program that aims to inspire people of all ages and abilities to get out and improve their personal fitness and health, but also to be outdoors more and connect with their waterways. And we're really also hoping to solidify the canal corridor as a place for world-class recreation. We have 80% of the Canalway Trail along the Erie Canal is completed, and the remaining gaps are being filled now. So it's very easy to go from Buffalo to Albany by bike or by walking or paddling, cycling. It's all there.
It is the longest trail
Yeah.
in the United States. If governor who is listening would say thank you, because it's a trail that goes, how many miles?
I do know.
750.
Yeah, the Empire State Trail will be 750, and Buffalo to Albany is about 360 of that. Yeah. So participating in the Canalway Challenge is easy and it's free. Registration is online, and it's open to individuals as well as to groups like scouts or schools and organizations. Participants register online, and essentially you pick a mileage goal. 15 miles, 90 miles, 180, or 360, and 360 is the end-to-end of Buffalo to Albany. And then you can walk, run, cycle, or paddle, or a combination of those things on the Canalway Trail or on the canal itself to complete your miles. People can do one big trip or many smaller ones in order to achieve that goal. And sort of like hikers that are seeking to become Adirondack 46ers, we're hoping to sort of position the Canalway Challenge as a way for people to work towards a mileage status and be recognized for their efforts. The Canal Corridor is a big place, and so we've tried to break it up into 90-mile regions, and it breaks very nicely between the major cities of sort of Buffalo to Rochester, Rochester to Syracuse, Syracuse to Little Falls to Albany, and then we're also including, we have the Champlain Canal, which is in your territory as well, and then we have the Oswego Canal and the Cuba-Seneca Canal. So people can do any of those regions and explore those areas to count towards their miles. And we're kind of encouraging people to rack up the regions so that maybe you do 90 miles one year in one place and then come back and do another 90 and build towards seeing the entire corridor. We also encourage participants to share their experiences on social media, and there's a dedicated Facebook group for that. And so it's been very interesting to see what kinds of adventures people are having. And one of the most satisfying aspects of the Canalway Challenge for us so far is kind of getting a sense of some of the people who are participating and seeing the impact that the program is having on them. So when people sign up for the Canalway Challenge, we ask them to name their challenge. Now I'm going to share with you some of the names that people have given their challenge. Canal Summer Adventure, Kayaking Through History, Sweatin' for the Wedding, Get Fit at 45, Jan's New Knee Challenge, Jan's New Knee Challenge, Back from Cancer, Lydia's Recovery Challenge, and I Love Mules. In the last month, 5 or 6 weeks since we launched the program, people have pledged more than 45,000 miles, and we're only 6 weeks or so into the program. There are 70-year-old grandmothers who are getting together and riding bikes and eating ice cream at the end of their trip. There are parents who are doing it with their kids and people who have run many marathons, who have pledged to run 180 miles along the canal, as well as people who have never exercised before and who have pledged 15 miles, and they're saying, you know, I did a half a mile today, and that's a lot. I know someone who recently just walked for the first time in her life a mile, and that was a major achievement for her. So we're really excited to have the whole gamut of people, and that's why we're encouraging those different goals for people to set for themselves. There are people who are doing the challenge who have never seen a loch, let alone kayaked through one. And there are people who have no idea how big and diverse and interesting the National Heritage Corridor really is. And so we're so excited that we're seeing people getting out and exploring, sometimes for the first time, what's right in their own backyard or what's, you know, just around the bend. I'd like to share a short video with you now that we're using to help promote the program, and it will give you a little bit more sense of the corridor and what it is. And then I would be happy to answer questions about it and encourage you to get involved or participate. Come up the river and take a left at the Mohawk. Thank you. So again, I invite you to join me in tapping the great enduring spirit of the Erie Canal and sign up for the Canalway Challenge or help us spread the word. If you know someone who you think might be interested, there's some literature out on the table where you came in. Feel free to pick up a rack card or one of our mapping guides and share it. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
You do great work. Questions, comments?
Well, one question? Okay.
Is a great way that working parents who spend quality time with their kids away from the cell phone, away from digital stuff. My daughters grew up, we hiked, we're 6 hikers together. My daughters are doing it with her kids. And it's really neat to see, they love it because it's quality time with their parents. There's nothing that interferes. And I think this is on a much lower level, an easier level. It's something that parents should think about doing, just the 15 miles with the kids, and there's so much to explore along the canal road. Yeah, I love your story about never walking over the Mohawk.
Right. I know when my children were in 4th grade, and every 4th grader in New York State learns about the Erie Canal, and so it was great to be able to go with them and see it and ride bikes and have them complain for miles and say, okay, well, think about what it was like to walk along the canal. mile after mile if you think this is tough. Keep going. And so you have that great background information that parents and kids can get.
You matched in good work, so we thank you very much.
Okay.
And we do have a bit of business. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is the appointment and reappointment of Eric Tobin to the board of the Greenway Conservancy, and reappointment Betsy Jacks. Who has had a similar Dennis Murray and Stefan Yarba to the board of the Conservancy. And so I'll take a single motion to remove that. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Now I can get on to the next one.
It's great to have these reappointments and your appointment. I'm just so happy. Okay, so this is now business portion of the meeting. We review our agenda, which you received in advance. There is one addition which we wanted to add, which is for Parks in Every Classroom grant application and award for the Teaching the Hudson Valley program, which we'll get to, but that's just an addition to our agenda. Any comments on the agenda before we proceed? Great. And I think, Barney, this is a blessed day. We're so excited for this next item on the agenda, which is, at last, removing the acting title from Scott's title. In a polarized, divided time, I think this is something that everyone everywhere can agree on is a good thing. And we're so happy. As I mentioned, I think when this came up, when you think of the Greenway, you think instantly of Scott. You are the Greenway. You are a treasure to everyone who works on this project together. And I just can't think of a person who works with more integrity, class, transparency, trust. And it's just such a pleasure working with you at these meetings, but also in between, on the day-to-day. And I just cannot think of a more fitting, honor, but also a gift to all of us. So just thank you so much. And now, is there a formal motion for this? Yes. And it's for all? Okay, so we need a motion, a second. Okay, I think everyone's lining up for this. So that's great. We have the first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Wonderful. Congratulations, Scott. You want to say anything else? Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm surprised it was unanimous. No. Thank you all very much for the trust that you've placed in me and the support that you've given me over these many years, right, Fran and Jane? Been at this, to quote Barney, we've been at this a long time. I especially appreciate the support from the chairs who work so closely and support me and our staff at every turn. Thank you, and let's get on with the meeting.
Well done. Okay, so we have just some approvals to go through with the minutes and the Grants Committee minutes. So I think there are two separate votes. The first is to approve the minutes from the March 13th meeting. And this is, again, the combined meeting, so this can be from the council or the conservancy. So first and second. So Kitty? Okay. Oh, yes.
At the very end of the minutes for the 13th meeting, we talked about the 50th anniversary of the Woodstock Conference. And I don't know if there was another event going on that summer, but if you meant to talk about the concert.
You mean the 50th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a 50th Woodstock Conference. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, thank you for reading, Kitty.
All the way.
We count on you.
The least I can do if I can't be there.
Okay, terrific. So we do need a first and a second to approve those minutes. Okay. On this side, I think we have them all taken care of. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Great. And then the second is for the Grants Committee specifically, and that's to approve the minutes from our June 7th meeting, which was just last week. So this is just for Grants Committee members. Okay? Bob and Meg again, okay? And this is again just for Grants Committee members. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And I do think there was some abstentions that we noted at the time, right? On the, that's not pertinent to here. Okay, great. All right, so we now move forward to the Conservancy portion of the meeting. I call that meeting to order and hand things over to Scott to talk about the water trail.
I wanted to give you a quick update on the Empire State Water Trail prior to Andy coming up and talking about all the wonderful things that are happening with the Empire State Trail. We have, since our last meeting, we continued our outreach to partner and hopefully partner water trails. We have formed subcommittees for data website, signage and branding, accessibility, and education and marketing. The data accessibility and the signage branding subcommittees have since met, reviewed what their purpose will be, set a priority list, and we are underway trying to get our website up and running and to develop a logo. So that's it. And Andy, you're up.
Thank you, Scott. I'm just going to give a brief update on the Empire State Trail, and then we do have a agenda item, several resolutions for the Conservancy Board to take up. So, as you know, the Greenway is constructing the Albany-Hudson Electric Trail, which is going to be a new 36-mile rail trail in Rensselaer and Columbia counties from the city of Rensselaer to the city of Hudson. This winter, we completed our design, permitting, we bid the project, and we have awarded construction contracts for 80% of the route. And that work is now under construction, very much so, driving down this morning through the village of Nassau, town of Schodag, village of Kinderhook, Stuyvesant. We have two construction contractors who are hard at work, so very, very exciting to see that work going forward. We have another 7 miles of the trail in the towns of Stockport and Greenport that we are finishing design and budgeting considerations on, and we'll be awarding additional work there this summer. And the project is on schedule for completion by the fall of 2020 next year. Some sections of the trail will be completed by this fall and will open to the public, so we'll keep you apprised of that. I reported at the last meeting, or several meetings back, that unfortunately it's a 36-mile trail, and there's 1-2 mile sections where some private landowners adjacent to the trail are opposed to the trail and started multiple litigation, multiple lawsuits against the Greenway to try to block construction of the trail. We're represented by the Attorney General. I'm pleased to report that the first of those lawsuits has been resolved in the Greenway's favor. The landowners, through their attorney, brought up an Article 78 challenge to our environmental impact statement and decision-making process, and the judge dismissed that in its entirety, and the Supreme Court judge of Columbia County and upheld our environmental impact statement. So there are additional legal rulings to come, but so far so good on that. On the broader 750-mile Empire State Trail, we have a tremendous amount of activity underway with our partner agencies, State Parks, DOT, Canal Corporation, Metro North Railroad. There are approximately 65 construction projects, large and small, to build new rail trails, canalway trails, and improvements on the on-road sections of the route. A third of those 65 projects are now either under construction or complete. The next third is in the bidding and contract award phase, and the final third are getting ready for finishing design. So all the projects are on schedule and within our $200 million budget for completion by the fall of 2020. $200 million, 750 miles, 65 projects. I'm not sure which number, but yes, they're all on schedule.
That's incredible. You're really responsible for getting a lot of this accomplished. And I think it's good work and great government and a wonderful administration. Good to see.
Well, I appreciate the I appreciate the kind words, but it really is government at its best. We have all the state agencies as well as local governments I mentioned that are doing most of the work, and so I get to announce it, but other people are doing it, so I will not take credit for that. We're now in that phase of steady groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings. I was up in Schuylerville last week with local officials to cut the ribbon on a new section of the Empire State Trail and Champlain Canalway Trail in Saratoga County. Next week, we're up in Washington County with local officials and the Canal Corporation. They're constructing 10 miles of new Canalway Trail that will have a complete route between Fort Edward and Fort Anne. Sometime in the next month, we're going to be down here cutting the ribbon with DOT on the new trail section in New Paltz, and we'll be out in Western New York cutting the ribbon on a new section out in Amherst and Pendleton. So just great to see all this work going forward. We do have and we are going to be writing this summer we're about halfway through the project now, so we're going to be writing a detailed project update, lots of pictures and maps and things, and that'll be a public document, but we'll certainly distribute it to the board members as well. We have a matter for the board to take up, so there is in your packet, buried in your background packet, there is a memo from me to the board members regarding our Trailheads and Gateways initiative. So there's a map there as well in there. So what these are is along the 750-mile route, we're developing a series of trailheads, which are admittedly modest. But they're small, well-designed areas that welcome visitors to the Empire State Trail. They include a welcome sign, interpretive panels that tell the story of the statewide trail, as well as maps of more local maps of where the trail goes 15 miles or so in each direction. Yeah, that's the map that shows where all these trailheads are. There are bike racks and bike fixed stations and some benches. So we have a modest budget for this. The average cost of those are $90,000. We've worked with municipal and state partners to insert these essentially into existing municipal and state parks that already have facilities and parking and other things. They're relatively compact, typically around 300 square feet. And so the Greenway we are contracting for the installation of 27 of these across the state. 26 of those across the state. We're in the process of awarding 4 regional construction contracts for those to be installed this summer and into next year. There are other trailheads that are being installed as part of some of the bigger trail construction projects that the Greenway is not building as well. So when all is said and done, there'll be more than 40 of those. And then secondly, where we've been able to secure additional outside funding, we're building more ambitious facilities we're calling gateways. They're typically on the order of about $500,000 a piece. They have all the same elements, but they're more larger landscaped areas. One is under construction by State Parks in Buffalo, which is the western terminus of the park at Buffalo Harbor State Park. We're going to be, we received a grant, I think I announced at a previous meeting, the Ralph Wilson Jr. Foundation. Ralph Wilson was a successful businessman from Detroit, and he also founded the Buffalo Bills, owned it for 45 years, and when he passed away 4 years ago, his estate sold the Buffalo Bills, and he took the proceeds of that and created an endowment, a nice $1.2 billion, that is evenly split between Western New York and Southeast Michigan. And so the foundation made a $6.5 million contribution to state parks and the Greenway for the Empire State Trail project work in Western New York. And so they're funding 3 gateways in Rochester, Tonawanda, and in Lockport. We're building another gateway. The State Fair is building within the State Fairgrounds. The Empire State Trail will literally go right through the State Fair, which is exciting. And then our partners, the Battery Park City Authority, is building a gateway in southern Manhattan at the Battery, where it's the southern beginning or ending of the trail, if you will. So the Greenway is constructing 3 of those 6. So the final part of, I guess, my session is there are in your packets 2 resolutions regarding to our State Environmental Quality Review Act, our seeker review of the trailheads and gateways construction projects. They were reviewed by our staff through seeker with assistance from state parks, with consultation with the State Historic Preservation Office and others. And we concluded through that review that it is the construction of the trailheads are an unlisted action under seeker, and after doing the review, they are appropriate for negative declaration, having no significant environmental impacts, again, because we are building them within existing parks and really that are previously disturbed areas. So we do have two resolutions. Scott, should I lead us through these, or is Kevin, who leads this? Kevin leads us through. We have two resolutions, Kevin? Okay, all right, so we will take the resolutions up, but I guess while I'm here, are there any questions on the resolutions regarding the trailheads, or just more generally about the Empire State Trail, or anything else? We're going to prohibit cars on it and make it, no, I'm only kidding. The second walkway over the Hudson. What we're doing on the the trail does go across the Kingston-Rhinecliff Bridge and how it gets from Ulster back into Dutchess counties. The bridge has been open to bicyclists for several decades, actually, and it's designated a state bicycle route crosses the bridge. It's not been open to pedestrians. So the Bridge Authority has bid a project. It's going to be constructed, I think, starting this year, to build to reconfigure the bridge deck to put in a protected 4 to 5 foot sidewalk for pedestrians to cross the bridge. It'll look a lot like the Rip Van Winkle does, where there's a sidewalk separately, right? That will result in somewhat of a narrowing of the shoulders, but they'll still be available for bicyclists. So that's how we're going to safely get pedestrians across the Kingston-Rhinecliff Bridge. Yep, and the New York State, the Greenway is funding through our Empire State Trail appropriation the majority of that project. The Bridge Authority is funding the rest from their funds, and they have awarded the construction contract, and work's going to start this year. Yes. All right, terrific. Thank you.
I'm just going to briefly talk about the trail designation that we have for today. It's appropriate that we're here in Hyde Park and that we are at the FDR site because the trails on FDR and Vanderbilt are part of this trail system. It's the Hyde Park Trail System. So rather than one long, like a rail trail like Andy's been talking about, we're talking about a system of different discrete small trails that form a Hyde Park Trail system that has a Hyde Park Trail Committee that has been working on this since 1988. So this is quite an achievement for them. The Hyde Park Trail system is 34.2 miles, plus all of the trails in Mills Norrie State Park is in this designation. That's 12.6. So that's 44.1 total miles. There were some previously designated portions of the Hyde Park Trail system. This will replace that because they were rerouted slightly. So the net gain for the Greenway Trail system is 37.1 miles. They've asked for designation as a riverside trail. It's got ownership and management by the National Park Service, New York State Office of Parks, Recreation and Historic Preservation, the town of Hyde Park. There's some private landowners. There's Winnicke Land Trust is involved, Scenic Hudson. And I'd really like to thank all of those organizations for working so hard on this trail system. And especially, I don't see her, Kathleen Davis, the Hyde Park Recreation Director. Is she here? Okay. I know she comes a lot. She's also the Hyde Park Trails Committee Chair. And Carl Beard from the National Park Service has worked very hard on this designation. I don't see him here either, but he's been an instrumental part of getting the trail system finished and also driving force behind having it designated as a Greenway Trail. I know Andy Bicking is here from Scenic Hudson, and they're involved in this trail, so I don't know if you want to say a few words.
Thank you. Just say on behalf of Scenic Hudson, congratulations to the Greenway and all of the partners for this great designation. With our partners in the town of Hyde Park, the National Park Service, and the Winnicke Land Trust, we have been working for many decades to kind of create the assemblage of properties that have enabled this to happen. And I think it's a true testament to the the great collaboration within the town and the region. So congratulations to all involved.
Sure. Just so we can, because there's one vote here that's both boards and the other ones are. So, as Kevin mentioned off the top of the meeting, there has been a grant application for the Teaching the Hudson Valley staff applied for a Parks in Every Classroom Spark grant of $700. They did such a poor job with the application, they were awarded $1,400. The board needs to authorize both the application and to accept the award. Both of these happened since our last board meeting, and for those of you who are new board members, particularly to the Conservancy, the executive director is authorized to apply for and accept awards that are then brought to the board and ratified, so we don't have to have board meetings every couple of weeks. So that is, I think that made it into your packet, but that is the upshot, and now we can do a single vote on those items.
This is again for Conservancy members, and this is one omnibus vote for the resolutions that Andy described, the trail designation, which we're so excited about, and then the Parks grant application. So this is for Conservancy members. I'll need a first and a second, and then, okay, Jane is a first and a second from the okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any recusals? Okay, great. So those are carried. And now Scott's going to talk to us about the budget.
Yes, now for the fun stuff. Not trails, numbers. As I've mentioned to you at prior meetings, the Greenway now has to follow the Public Authorities Reporting Information System that was created several years ago. When it was first formed, the Comptroller's Office missed that we were a public benefit corporation and subject to that law. Thanks to Andy's work with the Empire State Trail, they have discovered us. One of the things that we had to do, or we have to do now, is put in budgets for the last year, the current year, and the next 4 out years. We approved one of these at the last meeting. It is a new fiscal year, and we need to approve one that was in your packet for this meeting, or at this meeting. These numbers reflect, as you can see, what we expect to spend on the Empire State Trail through the 2021 fiscal year, which will bring us through the end of 2020, when Andy assures me all construction activities will be complete. And then for the 3 out years after that, it's just back to the normal Greenway budgets. The other budget that we're looking at today is for Conservancy, well, you should all have this in your packet. This is the budget for the Conservancy, the Council, and the National Heritage Area. So all 3 combined. The total on that budget is $30,514,000. $27 million of that is the Empire State Trail. Those numbers will differ from what you see on this because we didn't have these numbers able to be refined, and that's expected from Paris, that these numbers will not exactly jibe, given that we have to file these so many years in advance. So I can go over this line by line, and we'll get out of here about 2 in the afternoon, or I can answer any questions anyone might have on the budget. Okay. So we need to call for a vote. And this, because it's both boards on the budget, everybody gets to vote on this one.
Congratulations to you, Scott. Moving this along quickly.
And I should note too, we have a finance committee on the board that's made up of me and Betsy Jackson, Jane, you were on it too, and Sarah, and we went through this line by line last Friday, and Scott, it always amazes us how every single line of this budget he can give you a dissertation on, so it's really been vetted very closely. So we do need, again, a first and second and a vote on this. This can be from the Conservancy. Lynn first, and Sally second. Okay, all in favor to accept the budget? Aye. Any opposed? It's in the books. Okay, thanks a lot.
One final item, trail grants for 2019-2020 are now open. The application is up on the website. The applications will be due November 8th. and they will be awarded in December. We also, on the Finance Committee call, discussed both the NHA grants and the trail grants, and the Grants Committee has decided to award those twice a year. So trail grants will now be awarded in December and June, and NHA grants will be awarded in October and in March. Notwithstanding that, they were on a schedule that conflicted with doing them twice a year, so we are doing NHA awards today, so don't worry, you guys in the back who have been told you're getting a grant. We are coming through with that. Barney? Time for council.
Is it, all right, now let me see. We need to have votes on, Scott, the,
You just need to call the meeting to order, and then I'll go over the grants.
okay, for three grants, right?
Correct.
Okay. The meeting has been called to order,
All right.
and now the three grants, would you please describe those grants?
Yes, sir. The town of Greenway in Washington County has requested $10,000 in funding for a stewardship plan update on behalf of the historic Hudson-Hoosick Rivers Partnership. The stewardship plan is a fundamental document defining the recommended protection and beneficial public use goals of the partnership and the means and techniques for their attainment. The Grants Committee reviewed this and recommends full funding of $10,000. Is there anyone here from Greenwich or the partnership? Okay, moving on. The town of Saugerties in Ulster County has requested a $10,000 grant to do a town and village combined comprehensive plan update and zoning revisions. This is a bread and butter project for what the council does in the planning program. And is Leanne Thornton here from the town?
On behalf of the town and village of Saugerties, we appreciate your vote of confidence in helping us fund this plan. Basically, our original document was written 5.5 years ago, and a lot has happened in the town and village of Saugerties. We're editing and modifying the plan. Things like solar farms that didn't exist 5 years ago, adopting a new shade and tree policy in the town and village, the development of a new park, Bristol Beach, which is on the state parks listing as undeveloped. After 32 years of progress, it is now going to be a developed park with hiking trails. That will be one of the new additions to our plan. So we appreciate the funding, and we'll certainly make sure you have a copy of the new plan and proposal once it's completed.
If you want to get paid, yes. And also the trail development that you're talking about at Bristol Beach is also in part funded by a Greenway Trail grant.
I'd just like to add that those of us with long memories will remember a time when the town of Saugerties particularly, I think that's the village, was so adamantly opposed to everything that we're doing in this room that today's grant and the remarks we just heard is a very happy development.
I'm from Woodstock. I always knew Saugerties was going to be good. The final grant is a compact grant for the town of Unionvale in Dutchess County for a master plan update. The town board is contemplating changes to the zoning along Route 55, and they want to update their master plan so that get their zoning language in sync with their master plan. Supervisor Moss, are you here? Would you say a few words?
We are very, very thankful for this. We haven't made changes to our comprehensive plan since 2001. And actually, a lot of it still holds true in that, except for the zoning. And we've got a lot of pressures for a small town that it seems like it's a gateway from the south to the north, because we're right next to the town of Washington and going up Dutchess County that way. There are some pressures. There's a couple of developments and people trying to come in, and we really want to stay ahead of it. So we can't thank you enough for this. This will get us started. As you said, it's kind of a bread and butter activity, but we really need it, and we're very appreciative. Thank you so much.
Chairman, you can call for a motion. We have council planning grants of a total of $20,000 and the compact grants totaling $6,300. $50,375.
Second?
Second.
Let's give it to Vincent.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, none. All right, now, and the total of that is?
$26,375 between the two categories. Council?
Now we'll now open the National Heritage Area.
Now we get to the Heritage Development Grants. We have 10 grants totaling $45,575 to award. With your permission. Bard College, the Fisher Center presents free outdoor performances at Montgomery Place, $5,000. We funded this last year, and they asked for one more year before they put it into their operations, and we have agreed with that. And Karen Unger is here from Bard College. Oh, Allison, okay.
Thank you. I think I'm the newest member at the Fisher Center, who knows at the college, but I'm really pleased to be here to thank you for your support, renewed support of this program, which takes place this year in September. It's an amazing community event over 3 weekends for families and audiences. In fact, a quarter of our audiences last year were new to our programming and to the site at Montgomery Place. So thank you for supporting its continuation, and please join me there. It'll be my first time. Hudson Valley vendors provide food and beverages, and it's an incredible gathering of our community.
The next grant is for Basketball House and Gardens, basketball signage revitalization for $5,000. Jennifer is here, and I know that because her name tag is stuck to a notebook up here at the head table. So
I
if
like
that's
to
your
get
notebook,
around.
don't forget it.
Thank you so much. On behalf of Boscobel and our 81,000 visitors, thank you so much. Boscobel, as you know, has one of the most stunning views of the Hudson River, but it's also filled with stories. So our view shed, which overlooks an estuary, Constitution Marsh, Constitution Island, West Point, and the site of the Great Chain, that's a lot to explain to those 81,000 people. Most of whom, 55,000 of whom, never come inside. So outdoor signage is really a critical part of our interpretation. We have become evangelical about wanting to share these stories with everyone who sets foot on our property. And thank you so much. Outside signage is also incredibly expensive. And it's something that just got dropped from the budget year after year after year. So we're so thrilled to be able to update those signs from the Lenni Lenape occupation all the way through the great fight of Franny Reese to save Storm King Mountain. So we're thrilled. Come to Boscobel, see that signage this year, and enjoy all that awe-inspiring view has to offer. Thank you.
FASD Museum of Firefighting Marketing Expansion Project, $1,750. One of the things that both the Grants Committee and the staff really liked about this grant was we have a new feature on our applications asking for the last several years of visitorship. And we noticed that right about the time we started giving them grants for marketing, their attendance numbers jumped. And they've gone up every year. Is Christiana Lillipop?
Thank you. On behalf of the Museum of Firefighting, I do want to say thank you for this grant. It will allow us to continue to expand our marketing strategy, which has proven it works, and it will allow us to continue our mission. We are trying to bring the history of firefighting to life, through, again, it will continue to allow us to continue our mission of educating the public. I'm not used to doing this very often, on the importance of firefighting in terms of history and the history, culture, and service of firefighters to humanity. So thank you.
The next grant is for Historic Cherry Hill for a program called Swept Clean, a dramatic story of loss and restoration in Victorian America. A $5,000 grant to purchase costumes that will be reusable to other programs that they will be doing. And Deborah Emmons and Andrawis? Andrawis, thank you.
Noble effort.
I knew I was going to mess that up, and so did everybody who looks.
I messed it up myself, quite honestly.
Try not to look people down.
The tour that Historic Cherry Hill presents when we're not in the middle of a 10-year restoration project begins with the story of Van Rensselaer descendant Catherine Rankin about to lose the only home that she has ever known, her ancestral home, Cherry Hill. And the costumes that were referenced are part of a site-specific theater presentation that will be presented at Cherry Hill as a part of our grand reopening at the end of our major restoration project. So I like to think that, our story at Cherry Hill sort of, we have this parallel to Catherine Rankin nearly losing her home, Cherry Hill. Cherry Hill, in a sense, was recently nearly lost to us, but we have been able to preserve it, and we are celebrating our grand reopening. I'm very grateful for your support in allowing us to do it in this special way.
The next grant is for the Huguenot Historical Society for a grant called Picturing Huguenot Street, 3 historical paintings that portray a national historic landmark district over time. What they're going to do with our grant funding is to create an historical-based painting that will be currently done by someone who does this regularly. He will do a lot of research, he will put together the elements of the painting and then put the painting together, and it will reside at the Huguenot Historical Society on Huguenot Street, but it will also be used to brand merchandise that they will be able to sell to help support their programs. This is one of 3 paintings that they're doing, and Natalie Keikel, are you here?
Yes, hi, Natalie Kickel. I'm from Historic Huguenot Street. On behalf of the organization, thank you so much for your continued support of our organization over the years. This funding will allow us to commission actually 3 paintings from historian and historic landscape and maritime painter Len Tantillo, who is actually based out of Albany, so no doubt some of you have met him or at least seen some of his work around. Together, these will portray what our site would have looked like over the years, and they are based off of a very robust archaeology program that has been taking place at the site for nearly 30 years. So together, they will greatly enhance our interpretation of this site and our region. So thank you once again.
The next one is for the Saugerties Lighthouse Conservancy, the Saugerties Lighthouse Sesquicentennial Esopus Creek Puppet Suite, $5,000. This is a program to raise awareness about the Saugerties Lighthouse, and Patrick Wadden from Arm of the Sea Theater, who is the group working with the Saugerties Lighthouse to put on the performance. And Beth and I have both seen your theater company, and we think it's remarkable.
I'm Patrick Landaway from the Saugerties Lighthouse Conservancy, and I'll introduce Patrick Wadden. We're very pleased that you're helping support this celebration of an important milestone for our historic landmark. 150 years the lighthouse has been around, and a source of pride for the local community who rescued it from demolition back in the 1980s. And it's remote. It takes a half-mile walk to get there, and there's not a lot of space. So we're pleased to partner with Arm of the Sea and have a venue provided to by the village at the Tina Chorvis Waterfront Park, where the Arm of the Sea will bring to life some of the history of the lighthouse through theater at a venue that can be reached by more people. The events will take place on the weekend of August 16th, 17th, and 18th at the Tina Chorvis Waterfront Park. And for many people, it will be their first look at the new and improved park, which underwent some improvements with the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery. And they'll also get to see the neighboring property, which is under redevelopment by the Arm of the Sea Theater. And Patrick Wadden can talk a little bit about his organization.
Yes, again, thank you for your support. Our story is focusing on the Crowley family that were the lighthouse keepers during the transition from the old lighthouse to the new lighthouse that was built in 1869. And it will be a community event the weekend of the 16th, 17th, and 18th of August. This is the 19th year we've been doing a special event in the Tina Chorvis Park. And this location happens to be adjacent to a property that was paper mill, the Joseph Sheffield Paper Company, for 125 years, that our organization, Arm of the Sea, is repurposing and transforming into what will be the Tidewater Center for Arts and Science and Local History. And you'll be hearing more about this project as our planning progresses and we begin implementing. Thank you.
Thank you. The next grant is the Thomas Cole National Historic Site, bringing to life the home of the founding Hudson River painter. It's a follow-up to a grant that we gave before that helped them find actual wallpaper that Cole had painted underneath layers of paint. This is for restoration of a higher floor. Jennifer Grime, I think you're here and you can talk about this much better than I can.
On behalf of the Thomas Cole National Historic Site and Betsy Jacks, thank you so much for this grant to support the second phase of our initiative to reinterpret Cole's main house and bring back his own interior designs, including original hand-painted decorative paintings on the walls that were hidden beneath layers of modern paint. The first phase is largely complete, so I encourage everyone to come visit to see Cole's designs and to experience digital storytelling installations that connect visitors with Cole's own art and ideas. This grant is for the second floor, which is currently in the planning phase, to bring back Cole's designs and to focus on the last decade of his life, and specifically the power of art to communicate ideas about nature, the environment, and history in the 1840s, both in the Hudson Valley and in this young nation across the country. So thank you.
The next grant is for the Village of Kinderhook, Discover Historic Kinderhook, a walking and bicycling tour. This is the favorite grant of the Empire State Trail staff because it actually specifically references the Empire State Trail and talks about getting people off the Empire State Trail and into the village. The subtext is to spend money, but the idea is to show off their village to the people coming through on the Empire State Trail. The grant is for $1,325, and I don't believe we have anyone here from Kinderhook. The walkway over the Hudson is seeking interpretive digital signage on the walkway. The signage would be facing north and south and would explain to people what the view is that they're looking at. Given that we just did a train tour app that tells people what they're looking at outside the window of the train, this sort of seems like it fits with what we're doing. And the grant is for $5,000. Is anyone here from the walkway? Okay. The final grant is to the Westchester County Historical Society to do a Clio app. That's a type of app for those of us who are slower with cell phones, to register the 231 National Register sites in Westchester, put them on an app. And it's a type of app. Yeah, that's...
I can explain.
I'm going to bet that Suzanne can. Suzanne Panditch.
I'm still trying to decide whether it's Clio or Clio. So she was the muse of history. And it's a wonderful history app that was developed by the head of the history department at Marshall University in West Virginia. And it actually was brought to my attention by the New York State historian. And we will take the actually 300 National Register sites in Westchester County and enter them into the app, which will GPS locate them, but also has a very tight and very wonderful structure in which to put pictures as sites and all sorts of information that you can load up. But it's going to be a partnership right now with Mercy College. Mercy College students will be entering the information into the app, and we might also involve another college because it's so important to engage students in the digital humanities and give them experiences in the digital humanities. And we're also hoping that it will serve possibly as a model for other counties in New York. It has the support of our local historical societies, libraries, and other communities who can add to the app. Although Westchester County Historical Society has been given by the designer the editing of all entries in Westchester County, we will be the fact checker. So there will be no false facts in our digital app. So thank you very much for your support.
All of these terrific grants. And again, you know the drill, need a first and a second, and then a vote by all.
And is there anyone who needs to recuse from a particular grant?
Right.
Yes, you need to recuse from Bosco.
Yes.
Okay. So that, Basketball House of Garden, that doesn't mean we can't proceed.
We hope you do. All right, so a first and a second we need. Okay, Jane and Sally, and all in favor? Aye. Any
Kevin?
opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
But I would also just like to comment on and commend Historic Huguenot Street for the work they've recently been doing. I think when they transitioned the name of the organization from the Huguenot Historical Society, they moved a lot of the emphasis from the purely Huguenot perspective. And it's thanks to the new Historic Huguenot Street organization. And I'm sorry to say this, but it was through their programs that I first began to learn the depth and breadth of slavery in my hometown of New Paltz, New York. I just attended a program of theirs called Where Slavery Died Hard. And I think so many of us think that New York State history began in the colonial era, but I'm very grateful to this organization and all the others that are reminding us that there was a lot of history here before we arrived. So thank you to all of you, and especially to Historic Huguenot Street.
That's great. It's funny, I work in the field of African American history, so I'm so aware of this history, and it's true that you can take for granted that people don't, the broader public doesn't have this engagement with it. And that when you think of Ulster County, you think of Sojourner Truth, and so many important things came from her.
I'm glad you do, but I'm not sure, and I hope that more people will soon.
Yep, thank you, great. Okay.
Beth, you want to talk about the ramble? Yeah.
I just wanted to just briefly mention that the 20th annual Hudson River Valley Ramble is coming up this September. It's every weekend in September. Actually, that includes the 31st of August. And registration is open now to register your event as part of the Ramble. If you want to be in the printed booklet, though, the deadline is this Friday. So if you need assistance with that, give us a call at the office. But we're very excited and grateful to our partners, especially the Hudson River Estuary Program, for their financial assistance for this project. State Parks that hosts a lot of events, and so we're very excited that it's going to be 20 years that this program has been going on. So. 20.
This is the 20th anniversary. The Henry Knox Cannon Trail. Have to huzzah for him. Well, he would say that, yes, he would. I would argue the Empire State Trail, but, you know, they're both trails, so we're good. On May 23rd, we celebrated the reestablishment of the historic marker at Albany, which was removed for the construction of I-787 50 years ago, subsequently lost. We not only reestablished the historic marker at Jennings Landing near the amphitheater, we also put in this historic marker, not this exact one, but this is a copy. We had reenactors, we had the mayor of Albany, we had the mayor of Albany firing a cannon, we had the colonel running around directing everyone. It was a wonderful event. We also had Colleen Williams, who's the district director from Congressman Tonko's staff, as this is a National Heritage Area project, and he is the co-chair of the National Heritage Area Caucus in the House of Representatives. That was a good thing. And they were very enthusiastic about it. We also had a representative from the governor's office there, and she was also quite pleased with how the event went.
If indeed they ought to be, because this was the first designated historic trail in America. It was the first designated. And
Sure.
Yeah, no, that's all.
No, it's good. Semi-quincentennial. The semi-quincentennial is coming up, so Congress has passed a resolution stating that the nation will celebrate in 2026 the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. As part of that, a committee was formed. The state historian Devin Lander convened a group of stakeholders over the past month, so we've had 2 meetings so far. And in the Hudson Valley, I'm taking the lead on the events that are going to take place here. So for the next 15 years, you're going to have to listen to me talk about the semi-quincentennial. We're in the
Call
very...
it the 250th. Nobody knows what that other
Well,
word
that's
is.
why I'm saying it so many times. My 4-year-old, if he wants to remember something, he goes like this. He knocks himself in the head. So put it in your head, semi-quincentennial. And we are just putting the committee together now. We've chosen themes for the 8 years, 2025 to 2033. The significance of that also, like I said, the federal level, they're only celebrating the Declaration of Independence anniversary. We are passing in Orange County next month a local resolution stating that we will celebrate all 8 years of the war, and we're hoping that that'll spread to the counties around us as well. And we have to, because the war took place here all 8 years, and there's events that we're going to be celebrating and themes that we're going to be talking about throughout that time. So get ready. The next 15 years, that is going to be the center of of the history world.
The National Heritage Area, I represented the National Heritage Area at the meeting in Saratoga as well, and we are working with Devin and with Daniel McKay at State Parks to make sure that we're involved in these events at the behest of the NHA Management Committee. Moving on to the rest of the agenda, the Hudson River Train Tour app was recently awarded the Museum Association of New York Excellence in Digital Design Award in Cooperstown. The awards committee said this is one of the best things happening in our state and should get the recognition for how it connects the public to our history and heritage. Dan represented the Greenway at that and accepted the award on our behalf. And that's it for the NHA meeting. Moving on to the executive director's report with your leave. I would ask, yeah, that's right. It's the executive director's report, isn't it? Well, that will take some getting used to. I would like to ask the staff to stand up so I can recognize some of the activities they've been involved in. First off, Shannon is back from maternity leave, and the staff all went, several of us, Cody, Beth, Andy, and myself were at the International Trail Symposium in Syracuse. Cody, as an emerging trail leader, got to stay for a couple of extra days and do fun stuff. Andy and Beth and I were on a panel called the Empire State of Trails, and we were pleased to be doing that. Dan, as I said, has been working hard on the National Heritage Area program and the Train Tour app, working with our vendor to develop 10 new stories for the Train Tour app, including one for the Burroughs estate. And I think that's about it, other than to say they do a remarkable job every day. If you've ever seen their titles, almost everybody has an "and" in their title because they are doing more than one job. And I would like to ask you to express your appreciation to them. New business?
Yes, okay. Let's open up to new business and public comment. I see Colonel Johnson just came in, so we might hear from him too.
Colonel Johnson, he's right there.
Yes. But this is for anyone here, new business, new comments. Yes, in the back.
Give him an opportunity to speak.
And we will.
Good morning again. I'm Priscilla Brendler with Greater Hudson Heritage Network, and I want to report and thank you so much for your continued sponsorship of our workshop series on the power of stories. I reported on the first one, which was held in April at the wonderful, inspirational Boscobel. The second one is coming up on June 2nd, and as you all know, all of our museums are all about stories. It's about the stories of the communities. We had April 2nd, we have June 25th. There you go. See, you've got these dates down so well, don't you? So our houses are all about stories, our museums, the stories of the community, the stories of the history of the region, the stories of the people who lived in the houses, and also the objects that are inside the houses. And the way that we tell the story of the history and of the environment and of the collections is really what inspires our visitors. It helps to bring back for future visitation and to preserve our collections for the future. We have the 3 different workshops, which are different techniques on how our docents and how our staff can tell the stories of our collections. The first workshop that we held on April 2nd, was very well received. It was sold out. I know there's a couple of people in the room who attended the workshop. And the second one that's coming up is going to be with Sean McNeil. He is with the Shakespeare, Hudson Valley Shakespeare, and it's connecting collections and audience. The theater artist approach to telling the story and the objects in the collection. We have only a few more spots left, so if anyone is interested in attending, I have a couple of these brochures on the back table, and we welcome you to join us. And then we have a third one coming up, which will be on July 23rd. It's Make History Live. It's characters development with Candy Carl. She is a fantastic interpreter in third-person techniques, and she will come in costume, and we're encouraging people to bring objects from their collections, of course, if they're teaching collections sessions, and to be able to use these objects in your first-person and your third-person interpretation. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to pick up a brochure or give us a call, and thank you again for the Greenway for your wonderful support. We couldn't do it without you and be able to share all of these techniques with the heritage community without all of your support. So thank you so much.
You want to just send that to the Colonel?
Mr. Director, Chairman. I don't know that guy.
Yeah, me neither.
So that was a great event. It shows how, in some cases, it takes a lot of persistence. We started this project in 1999, and you can do the math. That's what it took to stand right there, all the effort. And I want to thank Scott and Dan for really making this happen. It took a lot of bureaucracy busting to get to that point. But the mayor, I guess you said,
I want to thank you for letting the mayor and I shoot a cannon. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, she made sure that she was streamed shooting that cannon. So this is a big deal for us to have the mayor behind this project so completely. And I saw some movement that maybe we're going to get one done up there at Crown Point too. So we might actually see. Yep.
Yes.
So that's another thing that's happening with the Henry Knox Cannon Trail. I just wanted to make sure that you remind you that we're having a conference at Marist tomorrow and Friday about the 1960s to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Woodstock Art and Music Fair. Douglas Brinkley, CNN presidential historian, is speaking tomorrow night at 7 p.m. at the Nellie Galetti Theater. We've got panels of very distinguished historians and people who were activists during that period. Friday night will conclude with the Bethel Woods panel, include the 2 people that were under the blanket on the cover of the album for the music for that. And Richie Haven's daughter, he was a very important presence on the stage, will be there, as well as her son, Richie Haven's grandson, who will do some music. So we're going to remember the festival on Friday night in the 60s, Thursday and Friday.
I would like to point out that the monument is actually in at Crown Point. We're just trying to get the Wayside exhibit installed.
Oh, thank you
for that. And the Crown Point monument is a brand new monument to the trail. It wasn't part of the original trail, but since about half of the cannons came from Crown Point and were moved to Ticonderoga prior to Colonel Knox coming to take them back to Boston, the Colonel quite rightly decided that there ought to be a monument at Crown Point.
Well, I'll give Tom Hughes all the credit for that.
James?
Sir, yes, sir.
Tell them where that trail goes.
All the way, technically most of the cannons that went to Boston, to Cambridge, came from Crown Point. And they'd been moved over to Fort Ticonderoga. So that's why Tom Hughes, who had been the site superintendent, site manager, said that there should be a monument there. We should correct what happened in 1927. Then to Fort Ticonderoga, down Lake George, all the way across to, is it Hillsdale? Did I have that right?
Yes.
That's the right place, Hillsdale, and
Down,
then
down the Hudson, crossed
Right.
at Albany, and then
crossed at
across to
Albany, which
Hillsdale.
is what we remembered there, because one of the cannons actually fell through the ice and had to be rescued, and Knox therefore called,
As depicted.
yes, and Knox called that cannon the Albany, to thank the citizens for helping get that out of the river. So you can still sign up for our conference. You can show up for the lecture tomorrow night, the lecture on Friday night. Those of you that are missing your review because you did not renew, look at this. You can't miss this. Women's March to Vote. I mean, how can you miss out on learning about women's suffrage? So I think that's what I got, sir.
Okay. Anyone else? Joan, take the microphone. Otherwise, they'll never hear you on the web.
It's hard to follow him, but I wanted to put a plug in for the storytelling, because you have 2 more left, and 3 dozens at Slabsides went, and it's just fabulous.
Lydia.
Possibly Scott or someone could get back to us on this. Apparently, there's a Senate Bill S-5294. There was a hearing yesterday, or I'm not sure if it was exactly yesterday, in New York City in regard to e-bikes and e-scooters. And apparently, there are environmental groups pushing for this legislation, but there were possibly representatives from the Greenway there that said that they were not sure if...
No, not us.
Did that come up at all? Or?
No, that was not us.
Was it? Okay.
There are multiple Greenway. There is a Hudson River Greenway in New York City in Manhattan. It may have been from them.
Okay.
We oftentimes get calls for them.
Okay, but nothing up in this area, nothing came up about that. Thank you.
I'm completely unfamiliar with it. Do you know anything about it, Andy?
We were just curious, so thank you very much.
Andy, do you know anything about that one? Andy Bicking? Thank you. Jennifer.
Yes. Thank you so much. One thing that is not controversial is how everyone it is time to celebrate independence, and I'm so glad to hear about the 250th committee. I would love to talk to you later about that, Johanna, because Boscobel has a unique story to tell in that it was a house for a boo-hiss loyalist. But how that family navigated both sides of the conflict, both before, during, and after the war, is absolutely fascinating. Yes, can't wait. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And this coming July 6th, Boscobel is hosting the first in decades program to celebrate Independence Day. We have the benefit of the Greater Newburgh Symphony Orchestra coming for a partnership performance, all music celebrating revolution. We're doing it on the grounds of Boscobel, and the grand finale ends with the West Point fireworks. So if you want to have an extraordinary, patriotic, artistic experience, please come to Boscobel July 6th. I'm going to leave our flyers for all of our summer programs on the table. And all of you, elected officials, there is no better place to be than a place that was saved for preservation and artistic reasons, and Newburgh, which is also on the rise, is being saved. So we're so glad to be able to combine both sides of the river, the here and now and long ago, and celebrate that on July 6th. Thank you.
And for all of you with events outside of the Ramble, at our website, HudsonRiverValley.com, our National Heritage Area website, we do have an events calendar. So if you want more people to come to your events, register them there.
Yes, I guess I'd like to close this meeting because we're in Hyde Park, and today we celebrated the designation of the Hyde Park Trail, and to share a story, and this goes back some 40 years ago when there was early discussions about trails along the Hudson River.
And 40 years ago, environmental issues, and especially trails, were foreign and socially unacceptable to even discuss. And it was pretty exciting because there were a group of people in Hyde Park that had this interest in trails. And Winnicke Land Trust took the first initiative. And I was with John Golden, godfather to Hyde Park, and we meandered along the Hudson River properties. And we came to this point where there was an old dilapidated bridge, a pedestrian bridge, that crossed over the railroad. And I turned to John, who was a big contractor in the area, and I said, well, John, how are we going to continue this trail? And he said, don't worry about it, it's all taken care of. 2 weeks later, I returned to that area, and a brand new pedestrian bridge was created over the railroad. And I just thought, well, 40 years ago you could do that. Today, it's almost an impossible task. But it just, it's 40 years in the planning that took the miles and miles of trails and the partnerships that were created to make it happen. It's pretty exciting.
If there's no one else, I just want to remind you our next board meeting is October 9th. The one after that is December 11th. Both will be right here. Thank you all for coming.